Okay, ready? Welcome to CineMcCue, where we chat all things film and faith through our lens of storytellers and as a creative, married duo. I'm Ian McCue, filmmaker, actor, and writer with over 10 years in the industry.
And I'm India, photographer and actress. Together we discuss the art of filmmaking and review what we're watching, all to discover what should go next in your CineMcCue. Let's do it.
Let's go.
Welcome.
Hello. Welcome back to CineMcCue.
I'm still India.
Still Ian, and we're almost to double digits. We're getting there. We're getting there, but thanks for sticking with us.
This is our 8th episode.
It is.
We're excited. This has been such a fun ride, and we have a very, very eclectic film to digest with you guys today.
We do have some more kernels coming your way, but for today, what do we have, India?
We have the Academy Award winner,
Everything, Everywhere, all at once.
And we're so pumped to go through this film and talk about what we liked and what we didn't like. And we haven't communicated about our thoughts yet.
We have not. A few grunts and laughs, and that's about it.
Of course. And speaking of Everything, Everywhere, all at once, I want to do my B-reel on our podcast. So y'all say cheese.
Sponsor us, B-reel.
Cute.
Amazing.
And with that, let's dive in.
Where to begin with this one? I think that is a good question for anyone everywhere always watching this, is to ask every question everywhere all the time.
At every point of time.
At every point of time. So where do you want to begin? Overall thoughts? Because obviously this has so many accolades. This has the most respect and highest awards in the community, right?
Yes. So if you haven't caught up yet, Everything Everywhere All at Once was named the Best Picture at the Oscars this year and took home, I believe, 11 awards total.
Spoiler alert.
Which is huge. It also took home a Golden Globe Award for Best Picture. So this had been kind of circulating and whispered to be maybe the winner this year. And then it was in the award season. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today was actually the groupthink around this movie, because I wonder how much of it played into the accolades. And I think that kind of every award season we can all ask those questions, is how much of this is the Academy, this anonymous group of filmmakers all saying this was a good movie without talking to each other, without knowing who each other is, versus how much is the buzz, how much is it socially oh, everyone on Twitter loves this film, or this really did great at Sundance, or...
And if it doesn't win awards, then everyone's going to revolt.
Exactly. So I absolutely don't want this to make it sound like the awards weren't justified, but it was such an eclectic film. If you're not familiar, it's a sci-fi thriller, karate, action.
Time travel, universe jumping.
It is pretty much what the title says it is, but it was also quite a lot and quite a unique film to be nominated for Best Picture when the rest were dramas, with the exception of Avatar. So that said, groupthink played into, I think, at least the buzz around it. And we watched it. We actually started watching it before the Oscars, and then we didn't end up finishing it because we were camping and we didn't have service. We didn't end up finishing it until afterwards. So going into finishing it, I had that in my head, is this already won Best Picture. Does it live up? When I think if I would have watched it before we knew, I would have been in a different place and be able to be oh, this is just such a crazy cool film, and not have that pressure. So I don't know how you felt about that too.
Yeah, it's weird because there are some things that I have not watched that have had a lot of buzz around them, and most of them don't disappoint, but some of them I'm why does this happen? Is the talk around this film just because it's so different? Is it because it's so good? Is it good because it's different? Because it's entirely it's so difficult to be unique in filmmaking and storytelling and all of that anymore. And so why are people talking about this? And then because most of that buzz around it was good buzz, does that play into it? And I don't know.
It's hard to know with the order we watched it in too.
Absolutely, because you watched a little more of it before I did, because I fell asleep while camping out in the middle of the rocks in the middle of nowhere.
We're literally in Joshua Tree and this man's sleeping, so we can't get mad.
And I genuinely climbed a boulder in the dark to get 1 bar of service, to get enough to access Amazon Prime where we had the film so we could watch it. It was, I risked my life, y'all, to finish this film, and we didn't get to until we got back.
Yes.
So
that said, I am very curious, and this is one of my 4 points. So it's not a huge thing about the film. It's just more about the buzz and the press. So if you have seen this film, please comment what you think. I'm just very curious to like open dialogue around it. I think the majority of what I've seen is like, this is an amazing film, blah, blah, blah. You should go watch it. It's so crazy. It's so insane. And I'm trying to figure out my own thoughts about it still. But I would say, as a whole, I enjoyed it because of its absurdities and because of its randomness. It's very much like my kind of insane humor. But I think at some points it did get a little like, this is too random. Or if I would have just watched this and not known a thing about it being a potential award winner, I would have been like, I mean, an excellently done film, but like, did someone just make this when they were high? Like, did someone just write this as a college final?
On drugs.
Yeah, so I'm just curious. Like, I do think it was so cool and eclectic, and a refreshing win, honestly, for the Oscars. And I did lean on liking the absurdity because it is truly just random. And then it came together kind of in a nice, like, there's the thread, but in a very absurd way.
Okay, I'm going to get this out of the way early. This is kind of, I've been trying to find the words to say this, but it was not what I expected. I mean, how can you expect that film? Overall, I think this was a brilliantly made film. As a filmmaker myself, I think the planning and execution to do that as well as they did and all the dimensions and all that, like, it is so difficult to do time travel and multiverse jumping and all of that. And so like the cinematography, all that, and we'll get into it. I just want to start with that. To me was really well done in the filmmaking aspect. But overall, since we're talking about the hype, I was disappointed. I did not like this film as much as I thought I would. I still don't know why. I'm going to watch it again for like a third time. And there's something that like it had, I don't know if it's about expectations. I like my expectations being low and then like them being exceeded.
Right.
But
That's
this was set so high that I went in like with that preconceived notion of, oh, this is a winner. This is going to be the best film I've ever seen. And when it wasn't, it was different, which I appreciated. But I think it lacked in so many places that I think the absurdity of it, they tried to go so extreme into that they tried to cover other places that lacked, but I think I saw some places that lacked. And so I'm excited to talk about it in this podcast because there were some pieces that I was like, I don't think that's good filmmaking. And I want to call those out while still, everyone don't tear me up in the comments. It is a good film. It is so brilliantly done, well done, execution, all of that, what they tried to do. They did it well. And this is a lot of maybe just my opinion and what I think is a good film.
Well, no, I don't think you're inherently wrong. And I'm sure there's other people who like totally agree. And I would say that there was a moment when we were watching it and I was like, this is so funny. And like, they'll pace out things like something as silly as like a butt plug joke. And that was like the way that this guy had to land on this stupid thing would jump him to the next verse. And I thought some of those were very well executed silliness jokes.
And I think that's cheap humor.
Well, I was going to say, I think they did a couple that were good. And then there was 1 or 2 times that I was like, it's too many now. Like she was like picking her nose or something to jump into another universe. Like at some points it was like,
one was funny to you?
I thought it was funny.
I didn't. It was cheap humor to me.
I thought it was funny watching this like overweight security guard fly through the air in slow motion to try to land his butt on this.
And the next guy comes in with a trophy, and then she does this Matrix move to get them both out and all. Like,
so some of
it was
right. Some of it was humorous, but then the trophies, it was like, all right, that's a little too much. And then there was a couple that was just like, I think you made the comment while we were watching, is like, how do we know what is continuity and what is film at this point? Like it was like, oh, if a PA walked on set, that would have been part of it. Like it was just a little too all over that I think it kind of lost some of the nature. Like I guess what I'm saying is less is more with some of those cheap humor jokes or things that are a little absurd. A few less would have strengthened the brilliance of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I was going to get into this later, but let's do it now because we're here. We're here. And I think that's one of the places that they missed out because they leaned so heavily on the absurdity of it and the randomness that it went on for so long that I was like, I don't feel the characters developing. I don't feel the narrative being pushed forward. I don't feel like they were just leaning on crazy cinematography and jumping back and forth between the different universes and the ways that they had to get there to be able to jump and like. And the first couple ones were cool, and I was like, oh, you have to get paper cuts between your fingers, and you have to like. And I was like, okay, I understand. But then they had to be super intentional at first by talking to the headquarters on like, okay, what do I need to do now to jump to the place to get the skill set that I need to be able to take on this task. Universe. And then it just became so random where I'm going to snort a fly and do this thing with my pinky and do like, and then they just randomly jumped to universes where they happen to have the skills.
Yeah,
and it
that
just
was a
happened
little weird.
Again and again and again. And after like 40 minutes of just a fight scene where they're jumping around, I'm like, I don't care about these characters anymore. I'm appreciating the cinematography. The transitions are wonderful, but like, I don't care about this character because they're just fighting and fighting and fighting and doing something random and then fighting again.
Yes. Here's another point that you and I have talked about different things like Doctor Strange into the multiverse and Ant-Man and mostly Marvel things.
I think this is my next point, but go ahead.
It's not on my list, so if you want to talk about it.
You start it and I'll take over.
But mainly we have just a little bit of like an aversion to anything that's like multiverse related right now because it feels so overdone that it's like, if you don't save the world now, this whole universe will die. And it's like, well, then just go to the next universe. And it cheapens human life. And then it's not, you can't like relate to them or grow any sort of empathy for those characters because another version of them will just die.
Exactly. So
Not to take your point, but
I'll get more into this and like the biblical illusion of it later. But I just want to touch on this that I struggle with these types of films because there isn't a weight to loss. Right? There's no weight in someone dying because it's like, oh, somebody else, like you exist in this other one, or
a version of you is somewhere else.
And so it takes away the like. Never once was I tied to a character and their almost death or aversion or adversity or whatever they were coming in contact with because I was like, they've just painted such a huge multiverse universe, this universe, that universe that. I don't know. It loses weight. If we're in a drama, say, like one of the other ones that this is the only version of you that I have.
Yeah.
And there's only one of you. And there's a sacredness around you, a holiness about the design that God created, you and you alone. There's weight to that person's relationships, decision-making, death, life, love, all of that. It carries a lot more weight if there's just one.
I agree.
And so once we start getting mixed up in all these, I'm just like, oh, I don't care. They died in this one, but they're going to probably come back in that one. So
yeah, it's hard because I don't think that this film specifically went too hard with the multiverse stuff.
I do.
Well, as far as like, they didn't show a million Evelyns doing a million different things. There was a couple.
They literally did. She jumped all universes.
Okay, maybe
to get all the Evelyn skill sets.
I guess what I'm saying is I wasn't turned off by the multiverse aspect of this. I was turned off a little more by the complete randomness of the jumping to verses.
I think that was the bigger throw off for me.
Yeah.
But then it didn't. So the main part of the story is her like fighting for her daughter's approval and love and acceptance while her daughter is the bad woman, right?
Well,
and
yeah,
so
yes, but I think there's a little
thing.
I think it's like her daughter is a little suicidal and kind of like nothing matters because there's all these, like kind of like what we're saying.
Yeah.
Her daughter was like, all of this is crazy. There's a million versions of me. Why does my life matter?
So I
and
created
she's like, I want to end it all, basically. And her mom's trying to prove that her life does matter. But we don't really get to that point until the last like 20 minutes when we're like, oh, her mom's actually trying to like save her daughter's life. Instead, it's just like, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And so it threw me. I struggle to connect with those types of films at a level of how highly this one was praised because I think we can appreciate it more than we can connect with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I think that the
fair.
story that they're trying to tell about mother-daughter's love, disapproval of generations, like they got into some, like, I talk about depth in here at times, and it's deep, like, and it really tries to take on some really important stories in really absurd ways, and I appreciate the crap out of that.
Yeah.
But it just missed the mark on, sometimes they just lean too much on everything else and how random it was that I was like, tell me the story.
Yeah, I would say there was a couple times. I think it happened twice. And granted, I watched it in 2 separate days, so it might affect that too. But there was a moment where I was watching her fight karate through these different universes, and at one point I just kind of got like mixed up. I was like, which Evelyn? Which universe? Is that still Joy? Is that
daughter.
Jobu?
Yeah.
Like I couldn't quite tell because the karate scene had gone on for so long and in so many different universes that I kind of got lost. So I will say I think that only happened one time, and it was kind of like at the halfway mark of this nearly 3-hour film. So I mean, I do think it was exceptionally done. And my next point was just editing. Like the editing made it exceptional. It was really brilliant. And I think that saved it and made it the difference of some high kids college final versus like a really well done film that's unique to everyone who's seeing it. Like no one has seen something like that. So I think that was something that was amazing. And they absolutely deserve the accolades for editing and their vision and the direction of that. But
100% agree with that. Like the first couple times when they went into the different universes and they did like that head tick thing, like just the amount of planning to get all of those different set locations, costume designs for a half a second
and it
of
was
screen
clean.
time. And
it was clean. I was like,
framing,
yes.
like all of that was brilliant. I probably should have started a little bit more with the praise because honestly, it's a really cool film. But I loved the editing. That was what really kept me in it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't mean to keep jumping. I think
we have to jump everywhere.
We'll be jumping everywhere. These points are all mixed up, but it's not like it's a film that I'm gonna go watch again and again. It's like I know what happens. It is a little wild. Like I might watch it one more time.
The only reason I would is to like catch some of those other quick edits and clips and randomness. But yeah, I agree.
It didn't have that like all-encompassing charm of something that's like an instant classic or something that I'm like, oh, that tugged on my heartstrings. It was just like
it's instantly unique.
It made me laugh a number of times, but I think those laughs would stop after the next time, you know, because I'm like, oh, I know now.
But hot dog fingers aren't funny.
I thought those were funny.
And then play piano with your toes.
I was starting to.
I felt like they sat with preschoolers and asked them something
I was getting the charm
random.
towards the end of like that's what they were saying is like life is absurd. There almost feels like there's.
That's what they did with their hot dog fingers.
They almost feel like there's no point, but don't worry, like there is a point if it means you and I get to be together for this moment. Like that was kind of that like, okay, that does make sense.
I almost wish I could, and we almost should have done 2 podcasts, one of just strict praise for this and then one of strict critique because I feel like the acting and so like Jamie Lee Curtis's Deirdre, her character, like, and seeing her in all the different universes and all of that, like it was super fun to see that stuff. And so like I wish I could go back and say this is all the good stuff.
Well, maybe I
don't have time on this podcast to tell everything.
I feel like I think I know what I would say about it. I think every single person involved did their absolute best at their job. And it made it something so unique, but not a cohesive instant classic film for me. I think every actor did an amazing job. I think the directors did an amazing job. I think the editors did an amazing job. The cinematography, amazing. Like choreography, amazing. And I think that's why I think that's why it won so much, is because every single person involved, I think, gave 110, and you can tell. They were all like dedicated to this absurdity, which is the only way it works when like feet are playing a piano and hot dog dancing. I think that's the only way it works. But because they all each individually gave their best, it makes a good thing. But there was no cohesion, maybe. I don't know. But that's the best I can come up with. And all that is shaped in a giant everything bagel, of course, that we all get sucked into.
Of course. And I think so with acting, I know that they won and I know that they were great. They were great performances. I'm going to start there again. But you're so distracted by the cinematography and the costuming and the set design and the universes and trying to just understand what's going on, that half the time I felt like she was just fighting and figuring out all these different personalities. Like I feel like, sure, she had to do insane amount of stuff to be elegant in a dress watching a screen, to be an opera singer, to be well done. I cannot do all of that. Like, congrats to you. That was phenomenal. But also, like, until the end, when she actually felt like she was going to lose her daughter, did I actually feel like there was a real emotion attached?
Yeah.
Otherwise, she was just acting out all these other people, which again is that good acting, but I want more of like the
heartstrings.
so this is kind of my point that I wrote was like I struggle to attach to acting that doesn't seem humane. And like if it's not like a human or like I could also access that emotion.
Sure.
And so I can relate to people who don't look like me and people who don't act like me and people who do different things than me, as long as I can understand the emotional side of their character that they're portraying. And I just feel like Evelyn's character was so caught up in doing all this stuff and what is my next jump that I never felt like I got to feel her act and sit with her character for more than 3 minutes in a laundromat. Like I never got to see her as much as I wanted to, like have her heart poured out for her family.
Yeah.
We saw pieces of it.
I was going to say, I think at the beginning you see the overwhelm of like the stories, like she's an immigrant, her family's immigrants.
Taxes and laundry.
Right. And that's just the whole world that they're in. So you feel that overwhelm of like, this is like what life is like for the working class. And then at the end, we see her humanity come back down about, I just went on this insane adventure and still my daughter, like, I'll let you go if it means that you get to choose me back kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I hear you, because I do think I think that was supposed to be part of it too, was that she went on this journey. And at that moment she like tells her husband, man, like I never should have chose you. I would have had this amazing life. I was an opera singer. I was a movie star. And I shouldn't have listened to my dad, and I should have done one of these other universes. And I think that's part of the growth.
Absolutely.
But it did get
cool.
lost in a lot of the like, now I pick my nose and I jump. Like to where? Like
yeah. And she just like learned everything so quickly.
Yeah.
So I guess and this just might be me as a consumer of film, and people can disagree, but like I genuinely struggle to see acting as good once you surround it by a bunch of fancy editing and colors and universes. And so that's like, it's difficult to say, but kind of like you were saying, and like Ant-Man, like I gotta actually see the new one. I know you haven't yet.
Wait,
but
when did you see it?
I saw it at Filmapalooza.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we were at a film festival.
We've been together every day the last
you
month.
flew across the country and I was alone in California, so I decided to watch it.
So you say, Paul Rudd, it's you and me, buddy.
But I feel like once there's so many distractions of other things that are good, like the CGI and the amazing battle scenes and all of that, and I don't see as much good acting in that, but when you slow something down,
sure,
and you put them in a slower story, I feel like that's when I really lean into the acting and emotional side a little more. And so that just might be me as a consumer and what I prefer. But like it's hard to see good acting consistently through like I don't know, like a Star Trek film where you'll see glimpses of it in very emotional scenes. But the whole thing throughout, I rarely see a strong performance because a lot of it's just battling and jumping.
In the sci-fi world.
Yeah.
Which I think is part of sci-fi as a genre. It's never supposed to be dramatic, empathetic. Like, it's supposed to be about the world. But then we'll get to this later because Ian's never seen Star Wars.
You just lost all of our followers on
We're going to catch them up real fast.
this week.
But I was going to say sci-fi wise, Star Wars does that with character development, emotion. You actually like, oh, there's still human in this sci-fi universe.
That's why I said Star Trek and not Star Wars, because I know.
Okay.
I know that there's
All
character
right.
development.
But I was going to say, I think
Wars.
maybe as a genre, sci-fi is more about universe building, world building, and bringing people there. I was going to say one more thing about acting.
But real quickly, that's why I like Lord of the Rings, though, because there are a lot of slow-paced things with some amazing epic battle scenes. But you get to sit with the characters.
Right? Is that
Well,
the actor?
yeah, that's the actor. Yeah, Legolas. Come on.
He's
Okay, somebody has never seen Lord of the Rings until recently. You've seen a couple of them, and Beyond Infinite. Okay,
that's really
okay. So
cute.
moving on. So acting.
He's got the long hair. Okay.
When I grow up, we're gonna have some marriage
Listen.
intervention right now.
Put your little elf ears on and ride a horse and we'll talk.
Deal.
All right. I was going to say, I'm literally on my last point because we've kind of covered everything and I've been jumping so much.
I haven't said any of my points yet, so I'm just kidding.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say acting was basically exactly what you were talking about. What amount of it was buzz? What amount of it was talent? From a inspirational an aspirational actress standpoint, I personally loved it. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. Ki-hyu and Michelle Yeoh and Jamie Lee Curtis. They all won, and they've all been in the industry for literal decades and have never been nominated for Oscars. I might have to fact check that on Jamie Lee Curtis, but I don't think any of them have been nominated. And they've all had relatively like small or fizzly out kind of careers and roles. Like we all know Jamie Lee Curtis from all kinds of different Disney things growing up and kind of as that iconic mom
Freaky
figure.
Friday.
Yeah. And then like
Yogurt commercials.
Ki-hyu.
Yeah, let's say Ki-hyu.
And then Ki-hyu in Indiana Jones as like a little boy, and then goes on this crazy journey of acting in these minor roles for years. And then Michelle, she was
like
huge in the 80s.
And X-Men.
Yeah, she had this huge career in the 80s, but then kind of quickly was like, I'm not really getting cast in things, like make it because of discrimination or whatever. Like, unfortunately, that was her reality for a while. And so from the inspirational point, I was just like so overjoyed to see them all win.
Yeah.
And
it was have
just
a comeback story.
Yeah, it was so encouraging. But at the same time, and I can't say this fully because I haven't seen all the Oscar nominations, at least for Jamie Lee Curtis's win, I was a little surprised. I think her performance was excellent, but was there a better supporting actress in any of the other movies? I don't know. I haven't seen them, but I was a little surprised because it was majority action in this one.
And she was a pretty one-dimensional character, but she did it very well. Like,
she did it excellently.
Cool.
And she committed.
Cool. Yeah.
Like she committed.
It did not look like her.
But so did Stephanie, who was Joy's character.
Jobu, right?
Yes. And so she was like the villain and the daughter, but she also was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. And I think she did better.
I saw some like emotional change from her.
How do you pick though? And I think that's another thing the Academy probably considers is Jamie Lee Curtis has been here for forever. This girl's very new.
But I wouldn't want to win because of that.
Exactly. So it's really hard to know, like, out of all the actors, and I think we should go ahead and do the rest of the Oscar noms this year, at least for Best Picture.
Okay.
Let's watch them, and then actually be able to say, like, was Jamie Lee Curtis the absolute best supporting actress in our opinion from all like 6 of those films? Maybe. She definitely committed, but I was just wondering, kind of like that acting.
But she was
buzz.
just the angry tax lady.
IRS employee. True.
But her character was awesome. So. Is that good acting?
But at the same time,
or can anyone do that?
And this actually has more to do with the film than I was going to say. I was going to say this didn't have anything to do with it, but it absolutely does. All 3 of those leads who won and who were cast in these roles, I'm just grateful that like they stand as an example of like perseverance in a very tough industry, like going against the grain. We have 2 like Asian American leads, which rarely happens, unfortunately, because of racism and bias and everything in film.
And even older people, right?
Yes. And I was going to say in age. Then we have Jamie Lee Curtis. And also these people are not like 20 years old. They're like in their probably all 40s, 50s and more.
60s,
yeah.
70s,
So it was
100s.
really encouraging, I think, for me, who's like newly into the film industry and just like as a creative to be like, you're not past your prime, which is exactly what she said. Like Michelle Yeoh said that. And she was like, don't let anyone tell you you're past your prime. Like we are here to say that like, keep going, keep persevering. Even if you have the smallest extras role in Indiana Jones.
Or in I Can. Which you have your premiere coming up, right?
Yeah, which is why my hair is all good. But it was just really encouraging to see these 3 people who all represent, you know, age diversity, race diversity, ethnic diversity, background diversity, and they're all up there as Oscar winners. Like for that alone, my heart is so happy. Yeah. So it was just very good on the directors and the casting agents for putting them in those roles and like letting them have the place to just literally go crazy.
Yeah. Because I mean, I know once I outgrew the age range of like being able to be on Disney Channel, I was like, dang it, I didn't make it. Right?
I think
because
you
like
could
I don't have a
still
chance.
be on Disney Channel as a fun uncle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Fun Uncle Ian.
Yeah. But like I thought that I couldn't make it, and then I was like, oh, now I can't play a high schooler anymore. So I missed out on that, and so like now I'm missing out, and I'm almost 31. So now I'm like, oh wait, what can't I even play anymore? Are there even? But yeah, it's not too late.
But Robert De Niro doesn't need to be Troy Bolton.
I'd like to see it.
You know, like Harrison Ford doesn't need to go be the young heartthrob in a movie. Like there's a time and place
Maybe the
for
old
everyone.
heartthrob for the movie.
The old heartthrob.
So all of that to say, like we're not past our prime. And it's really good to see, people that have committed to the industry for a long time, that they're able to be a part of such an incredible project. Because this one, like, I think this will go down in history as like a unique film.
Yeah.
Maybe not necessarily a classic, but as one of the better ones out there, which I think, again, just for uniqueness alone, like, it's hard to tell an original story. And even though this one has pieces of, the Marvel Cinematic Universe and multiverses and all of that, like, and the storyline's kind of basic, and the fact that she's just trying to, like, understand her daughter who is depressed and to love her based off of the life she got. Like,
sure.
If you break it down to just what the story is, very simple.
It's a fairly simple plot in a very complicated
an hour and a
world.
half of action and her being different people. The raccoon chef. I forgot about him. So, like, just random stuff, right?
Ian has an aversion to this raccoon that was like Ratatouille.
Raccoonatouille or something.
There was the play off of Ratatouille, which I love Ratatouille.
Ratatouille's great. Ratatouille is great.
But I know that you said that like cheapened it for you.
It did. I mean, it looked fake and animatronic, and then they jump on each other's shoulders and, like, cute, but they also did it for an hour and a half at least, where it was just like, next weird thing, and it just lost its charm.
I was going to say that raccoon was the only thing that cheapened it to me.
Don't watch this film, guys. No, I'm just kidding.
So rude.
Please watch it for a unique experience. Not if you're a child, though. We'll get to that.
Yes.
Do
you have any? Yeah.
I have some things. Points? Yeah, I have some things. We're not done here. So we've talked a lot about how crazy and absurd and everywhere it was, and why it's good, why it's bad. But I think why this film could hit a little better for people, and why people were attached to it, is because I want to talk a little bit about biblical allusions, and because that's kind of what we do on this podcast, and ways that all that stuff's tied in. And the first one was just the mother's protection, right? Mm-hmm. Her willingness to protect her daughter, and willing to sacrifice herself almost. Like, she kept on putting herself in danger's way every time that they were like, this is too much, you're pushing yourself too far. This is like, don't do it anymore, you're going to die. And she's like, well, I have to keep pushing through to save my daughter. And then she herself went through an acceptance of bad to good to bad to good to keep fighting. And, like, I think that design in women is beautiful, a mother's protection, a mother's love. And I think that was really well done in this, like, in the midst of having a daughter that she doesn't understand, a daughter that is gay in the film, and she, like, tries to protect her daughter in her way to her grandpa, because she says, oh, he's a different generation, he wouldn't understand. Mm-hmm. But then she learns protection in a different way of how to love her daughter where she's at. And so it just reminded me of, like, thankful that Jesus loves me where I'm at, and in my sin, and where I'm at, and what I'm struggling with, and doesn't leave me there, just like she kind of didn't leave him there. So that's kind of a switch to spirituality. But it was hard to find some biblical allusions in this one.
That's true.
I was like, I didn't find hot dog fingers in the Bible. So, but yeah, that was one of them.
Okay, this is just an aside, but we talk about this sometimes. Are there aliens? Is there other life outside of Earth? And is that thought even like a biblically aligned perspective? And one thought that we've echoed is like, okay, maybe there's like water or plants. Maybe there are creatures, but certainly no more humans. And when we talk about this, what we end up circling back to is, like, the Bible's very clear that, like, Jesus came to save the world and created the cosmos. So we get these very big, like, created real things
in his
image. So I don't think there's any other human image bearers around there, because if there were, there'd be another Jesus in another universe, kind of crazy.
There's nothing with a soul, or else they'd also need Jesus, because sin is real.
So I think that just on that crazy big zoom out moment, we could attach that to scripture a little bit, of saying, like, these sci-fi films are supposed to expand your imagination and go, what if there's another version of you and me in another planet, existing, living, thriving, with hot dog fingers or whatever? And as absurd as that sounds, like, still choosing love and family and some of those, like, Christ-like attributes
where God has you, right?
Yeah.
In your situation.
And I think, in a very silliness way, that's kind of what we could assume from this, is just, like, no matter what the world looked like, what if humans were green and that was purposeful? Or what if we all had 6 fingers? Like, I've always thought about that as a kid when I would draw humans. I was like, why are we this way? Like, God, why did you make me have 2 eyes and not 3? Like, whatever we think is normal, if there was other life forms, it might be not normal to them kind of thing. But either way, God is supreme, and those same attributes in whatever absurd universe there might ever be, I would choose to believe that like God still would be obsessively loving those people, and like that never changes, you know?
Uh-huh. Yeah, sure.
As far as you can travel through any multiverse, God loves you very much.
Yeah. So kind of what I said to that point is in this one, when there's too many dimensions, I think we lose the weight of how much God loves us, right? And so in this world, I'd already talked about like sacrifice not being important if there's, millions and trillions of other multiverses, but like God so distinctly loves us and gave his son for us here for you on this planet. Like you matter. You're not just another version of you in another multiverse that God doesn't care about if you're over there or over here. Like, he made you as you are, where you are, to grow and to be sanctified and fall more in love with him. So like God cares about you in this world, in this dimension, and that's what I know for truth. Mm-hmm. And so like I can speculate all I want about other dimensions and stuff, but you matter in this one, even though that this film kind of makes it seem like other dimensions don't matter as much. And it's like, sure, if you want to go there and like imagine that to be true, like you have a soul and you're made in the image of God, and God loves you here, where you're at, listening to this, like in this moment.
Period.
So that's real, and that's where I'm going to land on that one.
I think Ian can't do any more multiverses for today.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt my brain that much. I don't know. I care about people and experiences here that I lean that way a little more. One of my last points, I have two more points if that's okay. Mm-hmm. One of them was something that I think this was cool that it taught us was to understand new experiences and like to want to press into new experiences. Like she had to become a chef and become a sign twirler and become all of these different things and try all these new things. And even though she was stuck in this mundane life, like I think this film encourages you to try new experiences and try new things. And so like, I know all of you out there have imagined yourself as something else or doing something else, or like your big dream maybe that you haven't achieved, or trying this thing or dating that person or status, followers, whatever it is. I mean, if you have good intentions and you have a good heart and you're just like aiming towards Jesus first and foremost, I say go try these new experiences. I mean, they were exciting for her, but also don't neglect where you are now. Mm-hmm. Don't forget the life you have now, the people you have now, the husband you have now, the kids you have now, the experiences, the job, the whatever. Like, don't neglect that, but it is okay to strive for something else. If God is calling you to that. So I thought that was pretty cool that she like leaned into her past and where she was and tried to find things to appreciate there. Evelyn did with the laundromat and all of that, but also was like, whoa, there is a lot more out there. So what if I went and like tried this out?
I think too, that also like adds this fun layer of, at the beginning, we see she's stressed and overwhelmed with taxes and running a laundromat and caring for her family. And her husband's like wanting to get a divorce because essentially he's like, you're not happy, you've ignored me, you only talk to me when it comes to business stuff. And through those new experiences where she got to experience all kinds of versions of herself, I think she kind of maybe got out of her brain when it comes to the day-to-day grind, which I think is a good lesson for most people who are stuck in like a 9-to-5 that every day feels the same, going through the motions, like go to work, do this, go to work, do this. And you can really narrow your vision, especially when it comes to loved ones. And like she was unintentionally shutting out her daughter, her husband, and then trying to please her dad. So we had this like family narrative of like, I'm trying to make everyone happy, but I'm inadvertently pushing my daughter away, and my husband's wanting a different future because I'm not here for him emotionally. So it was like a whole kind of thing that I think you're right. Like those new experiences added to her life. And then she even came back all the way down to still running a laundromat and still being there in the same circumstances, but her experience was richer and her outlook was cleaner because she got to like get out of her head and then boil back down. Yeah. Maybe that's all people need sometimes, is just like one way to refresh your whole perspective. And if you come back and do the same day-to-day motions, like at least you have a more joy-filled, inspirational view of it, and it can kind of reshape everything.
Yeah. So my last point was I was going through all these points, and this is probably the one that I'm like most excited about. Was I literally just wrote what The end. That's all you need to know about this film. What? So yeah, I was typing out my points. I was just like, oh my goodness, I need to watch this again. Not craving to.
I will at one point.
I want to again with a lens that wasn't so cynical, maybe, because it just threw me a couple times. And then I started just kind of like, I really tried to pay attention because I knew we were doing this podcast on it. But I was just like, man, what? You lost me.
I think
what is happening? I don't care anymore. So.
It will be a cult classic in the sense that Napoleon Dynamite and Monty Python have made their own way.
Distinct way.
Yeah, it's or Princess Bride.
Version,
it's got
right?
a specific humor. It's got a specific following. And it's quirky and silly and whatever, and still has a tie. And I think this is one of those that will maybe even pave the way for more action, adventure, sci-fi films to get on Oscar.
Stay out of multiple dimensions, please. Oh my gosh.
I think we've had enough
I'm
of the
over it. We just had so much. I don't care.
The last thing I wrote about it, well, two things. My summary is it's unexpected, but not entirely unpredictable, but also a little predictable.
Yeah, that's actually very well put. Yeah, that's it.
Like, I knew they were all going to figure it out by the end and the family would be reunited because they would not just let it all go to this great lengths for her daughter to just leave.
Yeah.
But the whole time it was unexpected, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I never knew what was going to come next. Yeah. And then I laughed a couple times when it's just the most random thing happened.
The other thing I was going to say that I found charming, because I think you fell asleep at this point, but it was just going, and this
was the piano toes, was that charming?
I thought that was so funny to me, honestly. But it's just going craziness. And you said before you went to bed, you were like, I'm just like waiting for it to land. And the moment that it landed for me was when the
bagel showed up.
Oh my gosh, not the bagel. But when the husband and wife
when the raccoon
were
showed
in
up.
the alternate universe where she was like a movie star and he was in a tuxedo, and he was saying maybe at some point we could try dating together, even if life just looks like doing taxes and folding laundry.
That one was cool.
Oh, I got emotional because I was like, that was a cute moment where it brought all of that crazy wildness down to like, even if life is as boring as this, more boring than you can get,
I just want to do it with you.
Yeah. And I think that was inspiring to hear as someone who works a bunch of different jobs and ways. And it's like our lives could go a million different directions. But even if they do, and even if they don't, like there's no one I'd rather do the boring stuff with. And that's when you know, like you found love and like friendship and connection is when you do the most boring thing like taxes with someone.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this tax season. Let's go. Okay, what you just said it yourself that you're looking forward to doing it with me.
I don't love taxes.
All right, so let's jump into our quick scoring.
Score time.
And this one is all over the place for me.
Yeah, same. Okay, so which overall's last, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Want to kick us off?
Yeah, let's do family friendly. I'm actually gonna go down one.
Okay.
I'm
Ready?
gonna go down one. Yeah.
1, 2, 3
4.
out of 10.
Yeah, 4 and a 3.
Yeah, I didn't think it's not.
Just don't watch it with your kids. It's wild. It's weird.
There's language. There's sexual objects.
Yeah.
Nothing that was
it's not worth it for a kid right now.
Yeah, nothing that would be appropriate for anyone under 14, and even like it just depends on like what you're comfortable with. Yeah. Nothing that was like absurdly inappropriate, but probably just some imagery you don't want them seeing.
Let's jump to cinematography.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. 9 out of 10.
9.4. So I thought the cinematography was beautiful. The lenses, sometimes they had some like fraying and blurriness over on the sides of the screens. Like I was watching a bunch of stuff, and I know they didn't always use the highest end cameras when like the directors are just walking through city streets with little tiny cameras to get all the effects and stuff, but like beautiful.
Really hard to do better.
Every
cinematography.
Yeah. Even the angles they chose, like
I was gonna say, planning.
The cinematography made this film for me for sure.
And I think the directors, the Daniels, both guys named Daniel.
The Davids, the Daniels.
Wait, it's the Daniels, right? Yeah, I think so. But I think that was very well deserved because it's rare that you can clearly see good direction in a film. And I think this was one of those where that planning really like came through. And as a very clear, we had this vision, let's execute it with this absurd way.
Yeah, it is the Daniels.
Okay.
Quan and Scheinert, something like that. So next, cinematography was phenomenal. I love the cinematography, and it's worth it just for that alone. Real quickly on this point as well, I was impressed that Like they could have gotten lazy and then like had some seconds where, she tumbles down the stairs and she just tumbles down the stairs because she's in a wild outfit. But then they changed the color of her outfit on every step. Like the little details of everything random it felt intentional.
Yes.
It really did. And it's hard to make randomness feel intentional, but the randomness still was kind of too much for me.
Right. And can you imagine as an actress being like, all right,
trying to keep track of
tumble down the stairs. All right, change outfits. Tumble down the stairs again.
Well, they probably did it in post with
10
CGI
times,
too.
like
I don't know.
Change your hair and makeup. Tumble down the stairs again. Like
it's
continuity.
Wild.
Just thinking of those
Till
poor
your head
editors.
Here, that was wild. But cinematography, wonderful. Let's go to acting.
Okay. 9 out of 10.
7.6. So I lost my co-host.
Would you like to tumble down the stairs 9 times in 9 different outfits?
I already have. Well, it was like 5 different outfits, but
I think they all did as best as you could do in a role like that.
And that's what I'm saying is I don't think the story invited heavy acting ability. I think that the people that were in it were the perfect ones for it, and I thought they were great. But I've seen some amazing films that like Angelina Jolie's performance in Changeling. I think it was like 2009, and she was in this film from like the 20s, and she played a mother. And like that performance is not talked about, and it was, I think, far better than any performance in this film. And so like I think it was just because the story allowed for her to act more.
That's true.
And I just think I think the acting was brilliant, but the story didn't let them get better than a 7.6. They did a 10 out of 10 for the type of story that was provided for them.
Right, which is where I gave my score. I was like, in this script, I don't think you could do better.
Yes. In this script, I think
everyone
great.
Committed 110%.
I would give them a 9.2 out of 10
so not comparing
if it was
to other,
in this story.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
For what they were given, I think they nailed it. I really do, and I completely agree with that. But I think overall, compared to other performances I've seen because of story's allowance of better acting, that's where I landed in the mid 7s. So, all right, let's do depth real quickly and then overall. So this one was actually hard for me to score because I went from like a 4 to a 9. I was like, I don't know. So what'd you put?
I put 5 out of 10.
I did 7.8. And I think just because of if you sit with it and try to get all the nuances of all the multiverses and what they were really trying to say, I think you could go deep with this film.
There's probably more, yeah.
I don't think I've given it enough time to understand how deep it probably does go. Mm-hmm. And so I ranked it higher, but what about your 5?
Yeah, I was thinking 5 because the plot itself...
It's pretty one-dimensional.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
The plot itself didn't take too much brain power, but we also didn't get it really until halfway through. Mm-hmm. We were like, okay, she's just like running around because there's this like unnamed villain. And then we're like, oh, it's her daughter. And then we're like, oh, her daughter's trying to suck herself into a bagel and wants to take her depressed mom with her. And her mom's like, yeah, there's no meaning to life anymore. Guess we'll just hop into this bagel.
And the disapproving grandpa then grabbed them with toaster arms that he made out of office appliances or whatever.
Yeah, so it was just like, I think the plot itself at its core is like trying to understand someone and be understood and find a purpose in this somewhat purposeless feeling life sometimes. Mm-hmm. And that was like the core purpose and the core plot. And so it's not super deep, but then the way
it leans
they made
into other themselves and other dimensions and what they're experiencing and all that they're going through. And I think you could dig and find some stuff.
All right. Maybe I'll change to a 5.5.
Like, what does hot dog fingers mean? I can't get over that.
I loved it. It was so funny. Just so random.
And they kept going back to it. Okay.
You're talking to the girl who had a YouTube page that had a video called the Fruit Loop Flower, where I glued Fruit Loops onto Daisy.
You wait. And that's it for this episode.
I glued Fruit Loops onto daisies, and I tried to make like the next like big internet sensation, like like octopus, like the tree octopus. There was like I have always liked random things. That's who you're talking to.
Probably why
that's why I like the hot dog fingers. That was funny.
I like intentional things, and I feel like this film was more intentional than I give it credit for, but it was tough.
I would like hot dog fingers for breakfast. Thanks.
All right. What's your overall score?
All right. Overall score, I said 8 out of 10.
I gave it an 8.3.
Okay.
I mean, the cinematography carried it. The acting was great, again, for the story that they were given. The editing, phenomenal. And I think that alone, I was like, a well-made film.
Yeah.
And they leaned into something new and unique, and I give them credit there. I could give them credit where credit's due. Yeah. I'd like to sit with the Daniels and ask why they kept going into the randomness as much as they did, because it lost me.
Mm-hmm. Or even if they cut out 10 minutes of a fight scene,
Mm-hmm.
that would have maybe polished it up for me.
I agree.
And been like, boom.
It still is like, wow, this is so random, but I just didn't get lost in the middle of it. So I think it's a brilliant film. Guys, you can hate on me in the comments, but overall I gave it an 8.3 out of 10.
Really, really good. Really, definitely like worth the watch at some point in your life. What a crazy ride, and so eclectic. It's gonna go down in history as like that one sci-fi film that won the Oscars.
Watch it with someone.
Watch it while you're high. No, just kidding.
Get some edible. No, we do not encourage that, y'all.
Watch it while you've had like 6 cups of coffee. Like try it in these different environments.
Yeah, I don't know. Take a bath and eat some pizza. Like do something random while you're. I don't know. But all that to say, good film. Should you cue this up in your CineMcCue? I would say so. I mean, it's original, it's unique, it's fun, it's wild. It'll make you think, which I do appreciate about films, but I don't think it was because of the story. I think it was because of the cinematography, not even necessarily the worlds that they built. So I liked it.
I liked it too.
I would recommend. Wouldn't put it past a bunch of other films, but you should cue it up, especially because it's relevant to right now and the conversations going on.
Definitely. So that's all for today's podcast. Coming up next, we're very excited to start doing bite-sized versions of these podcasts. We know that...
And they won't have as many spoilers.
Yes. We know that it's hard because some of you have seen these films and are ready to like dive into the depths. And other people are like, wait, I was actually going to watch that movie. I don't want it spoiled, but I want to hear your thoughts. So we are going to do something called kernels, because popcorn kernels...
India's idea, as you can tell.
I love it. And these are going to be smaller bite-sized episodes, probably less than 15 minutes, where we give a non-spoiler overview and quick kind of rundown on where a show or film should go in your CineMcCue. So next up, I'm going to do an episode on Bridgerton, the Netflix sensation, and kind of give my thoughts on whether you should watch it, if it is something that's appropriate for people who are Christians, if it's worth your time and effort, and kind of just my overview thoughts without spoiling Bridgerton. So that'll be our next one, and we're excited.
Yeah, and so a lot of those kernels, it will be just one of us, so that will be India alone.
Yeah,
and because we do actually watch shows and movies without the other person. Like I love Peaky Blinders, but it's not something you want to expose yourself to. Kind of why we're doing this podcast is what should and shouldn't you, and why. And so
I love rom-coms, and he does not.
I just will watch them because I love her. So, you will probably be seeing just India on that one, but on Kernels, it'll be a lot of solo things. But catch India on the next podcast for her Kernel, and then she'll keep you up to date on what's next. So thanks for joining in, guys, and this has been CineMcCue. See you next time.